All right, two games for tonight. One, I really like the Clippers getting 5.5. I expect the Bucks to win this game, but I know the Clippers are on a back-to-back. I know the Bucks have really played very, very well coming out of the break, starting them with that win against Minnesota, and just continuing to roll since then. But I think the Bucks don't match up great against this Clippers team, particularly Kawhi and Paul George if they both play. Those wings are going to cause them the Bucks problems. Who really don't have the personnel to match up. So even though it's a back-to-back game, I think the Bucks, will win the game. But the Clippers coming off a hard-fought win against the Timberwolves, I think they have enough to keep this close. I think 5.5 points is too much. So Bucks win, but Clippers cover the 5.5. The other game, I like they're heavy favorites. And I know they're not a great team, the Brooklyn Nets, given 9. But they're starting to play a little bit better under their new coach. Mikal Bridges seems like he might be coming to life. He had 38 in the last game against the Hawks. They beat Memphis recently in a blowout. Memphis really doesn't have anyone other than Simons doing anything right now. I'm sorry, not Simons. Just in general, they don't really have anyone doing anything. And I think this is a game that Brooklyn should win going away. So that's my pick. Memphis played Saturday night, lost a double overtime game to Portland. So they have had a day off, but I don't see this one as a good spot for them, and I think Brooklyn wins going away.
You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Okay, all right.
Hey everyone, Mike and Jim here. The Celtics just continue to roll. What a performance yesterday against the Golden State Warriors. And Mike, to set the scene of that game, it had every sense of a big game leading in. I know the Warriors situation is they're playing for a play-in right now. I think they're either the 9th or 10th seed out west. But they've won 8 of 10. They've been very, very good of late. Kristaps Porzingis is out. It's a national TV game. Steph Curry pregame walking through the arena just had a sense of, big game feel. Klay Thompson was making trick shots a half hour before the game. And then, even at tip-off, it just felt like we're going to, it's going to be one of those back and forth games. And it was 22-22 through the first quarter. And that's when all hell broke loose. And the Celtics just, rolled them, outscored them by 50 points over the next 30 minutes, and particularly controlled the first and second quarter. Mike, the way this team is playing right now, they certainly the cream of the crop in the NBA. They've won 11 straight. The point differential has been plus 20 in this winning streak. It's just been they're playing over 800 basketball for the season. You're running out of superlatives to describe how well they're playing. But it's been amazing to watch. I mean, these games aren't even competitive. Yesterday wasn't competitive. The second half versus Dallas was not competitive. And now, they have a couple more big games coming up during the stretch that we talked about in the last pod. But they're rolling. So you give your initial thoughts. I'm kind of at a loss of what more to say, about this team.
Yeah, I think that Golden State's game plan was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They weren't covering guys. They were
covering one guy, not covering one. Yeah.
In particular, Jaylen Brown, but even like later on in the game, they weren't really helping on Jason Tatum when he was going to the basket. They just let him go. Yeah, I don't know if that was a Draymond Green thing or a Steve Kerr thing. Green's interview after the game was a bit bizarre. We didn't come up with our defensive game plan until 15 minutes before the game, and I said, sure, let's try it. I don't know if Steve Kerr doesn't have his hand on the pulse of that team. I'm not sure, but that was just dumb. I don't think there's any way to defend leaving an all-star wide open, and just letting him shoot. I mean, I don't understand. Jaylen Brown's not Draymond Green. Jaylen Brown is a really good player, averaging, I think going into that game over the last four, they said 27 a game.
All NBA,
Um,
all NBA guy, you leave him wide open. It's just
yeah,
it was
it was,
disrespectful. It really was.
yeah, just practice jump shots. What did Brown end up with in the first quarter for points?
19, and then Tatum had 20 in the second. So
So that really got the Celtics going. I mean, I don't know how to. I mean, they're playing great, Jim. They're playing out of their mind. And last night, Porzingis wasn't even out there, and Al stepped in and looked really good again. Cornette came in and played great defense. The shooting was out of this world, but really the defense was out of this world.
defense was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Brown was right up in Curry, forcing turnovers. I don't know if Curry's knee had anything to do with how he was playing yesterday because he didn't look great, but Brown was turning him over. Shots were contested. Everything at the rim was contested. I mean, when Kuminga finally scored to break the 25-2 run or whatever it
25-1, and the only point was a 3-second defensive violation. So a technical foul. Yeah.
So when Kuminga finally scored, that was a contested fading away jump shot in the paint. It wasn't like it was a layup or a jump shot off a great possession. Everything was contested. Every pass, every drive. You could tell that the game meant a lot to Boston, and they even in the fourth quarter during garbage time, the Celtics were dominating. So it was they seem to be locked in, and I have a feeling we're going to see more of this on the road trip, even against really good teams.
Yeah, and we talked before, so it's 11-game win streak, but it's kind of two segments, right? Because we talked before the All-Star break about this team. They're winning, but it wasn't necessarily great basketball. They played okay before the All-Star break, but it was almost we talked about they're going to play one good quarter, dominate a bad team, and then kind of coast for the other three. And they kind of did that. And out of the All-Star break, they've just been the second half of this win streak. The last 5 games have just been they've been a different team. This is a team that clearly is on a mission. They look like, I think every team they played is a playoff team. And look, I know there's been injuries and whatnot that they're not playing these teams at full strength, but these games have not been competitive in the second half. They have not been competitive in the fourth quarter. They're just annihilating teams. And Mike, you mentioned that it felt like a big game for the Celtics. And I think there was they wanted to send a message. And you heard Jaylen Brown say it after the game yesterday, that, what the Warriors, they had their time. We want to let them know that this is our time now. And, we'll see. I think we'll see, it's a good win, but I don't know how it translates going forward. Mike, they got Cleveland coming up tomorrow, who just lost to the Knicks. The lead is now 9.5. The 1 seed, I think it's all about wrapped up. And then the big one Thursday night in Denver, as they go out on the road here for a kind of a, Cleveland, Denver, Phoenix, Portland, and then Phoenix. Do you think they have anything left to prove? They've gotten over this hump with Golden State. They blew the 17-point lead versus them last year. And now, how big, I guess, to you are these next couple games as we look at it at this point?
I don't think the Cleveland game's a big game because the Celtics have already beat them twice. I think it's a really big game for Cleveland, though, because they haven't beat the Celtics this year. So I expect to see Cleveland's very best effort. And so I'll tune in because that will make it for an electric atmosphere. That place will be into it. It's a nationally televised game. But to the Celtics, I think it's more about continuing just to play right and to play well. And if you're not shooting the ball well and you have a bad night and you lose, but you play the right way, that's what I'm kind of looking for at this point. I think for the Denver game, I do think that's important. They lost a close one at home, really a game that they should have won. They just shot the ball so poorly in that game. I think that was a big factor where Murray and Jokic really couldn't be stopped by the Celtics. So I do think there's some importance to that, to show yourself that not only you can play with this team, that you can beat them. Because this is, as I said in the last pod, I think the team. I think it's going to be Boston and Denver. Not to say if they lose both regular season games, they can't beat them. But I think there's something to that is psychological advantage. And I do think that this team has struggled a little bit on the mental side in some playoff runs here when things haven't gotten their way in the past. So I do think that's, people have a right to question that side of the Celtics. The rest of the regular season, I don't think matters at all. I think for me, even against the Milwaukee games, like, I think we know what Milwaukee is. I think we know what Boston is. I don't think these two games are going to prove anything. What's going to really prove it is in the playoffs. Let's see who wins that series. For instance, even in the Denver game, if Porzingis has any questions about his ankles or anything, I'm not playing. If Holiday comes to me and says anything doesn't feel right, I'm not playing him. If Al says I'm tired, I'm going to say, how much time do you need? Yeah. Like, that's where I'm at. And I think that's the way they should handle it. I think the most important thing, and I think Richard Jefferson said it yesterday too, he's like, I'm really glad they're playing this way right now. But it's important for them to focus on playing like this for the rest of the season, playing the right way going into the playoffs, and, continuing to have good habits and not falling into any bad habits. So that's Joe's job right now. Winning and losing. Winning's great, but I don't think it's a priority as far as health and just playing the right way right now.
Yeah, and I think as far as this Denver game goes, I am really, if Porzingis can go, I know he missed yesterday with the thigh contusion. It doesn't sound serious. But I thought, so he started off red hot against Denver the first game in that first quarter, but was really quiet throughout. And I thought Jokic's size really bothered him. And even when they would get Porter and Gordon on him, I thought their strength and size, made him struggle a bit. And that's something we haven't really seen. So I want to see how the Celtics adjust to that. If they try to find mismatches, try to go to the screen and roll, you see more of a two-man game in this game, against Denver than we saw in the last game, whether that's with Brown or Tatum and Porzingis. So that's an interesting wrinkle. I just want to see how the Celtics adjust, because I thought they, Porzingis was way too quiet for the final three quarters of that last game. And going on the road to Denver, I think this is a good experience. This is probably the team that's going to come out west. There's no guarantees, obviously. Denver's as tough a place in the league, if not the toughest place in the league to play. And not only do they have a great home crowd, but the atmosphere conditions there are just, can be shocking to the body. You see teams wear down as they go later into the game down there. So I think the experience late in the year playing there is probably a good thing. And what's interesting to me is the Celtics, up until the second game last year, were kind of owning this matchup against Denver over the last several years. I thought Denver played just a brilliant game against the Celtics last year, late in the season down there. It wasn't even one of those games where you left it and said the Celtics played poorly. Denver just, they shot amazingly. The defense was really good. Jokic was dominant. And it was one of those games where it felt like it set the tone for the Nuggets for the rest of the season. And they just kind of took off and went, and obviously won the championship. And then they really showed championship moxie somehow finding a way to win in Boston in a game where the Celtics, I think, had 4 total turnovers. And Denver only, I think it was a low scoring ball game, all those things. And Denver found a way to get a win and really in a game they probably shouldn't have. And so now going there, how the Celtics are going to respond to that. Denver had the last couple of games, Denver had their way with you last year and then stole one from you. Okay, how are you gonna respond? So that psychological kind of game that's being played here. Um, and I do think it's important in the sense of I don't think games really carry over to the playoffs at all. But I think if you come out with a, really good game down there, it's going to send a message and at least leave something with Denver to think about the next time you see them. And the last thing I have to say, Mike, is I really do hope this is the preview of the finals. The other teams out west, there's some really good teams out there. Obviously, we talked about the Clippers, the Timberwolves, all those guys. But this is the matchup. I think it's the best matchup for the league. I think these are the two best teams. There's certainly no one in the East that rivals Boston in terms of talent, not even Milwaukee, in my opinion. And so I look at this as the premier matchup that I'm hoping we see. And I really do. I think this is going to be a preview, and I really hope it is the preview.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's the best matchup in the NBA. And I think it's must-see TV. The way the Clippers play and Minnesota play, they kind of really slow the game down. It's not very entertaining. It's good basketball, but yeah, I want to see Jokic first versus Celtics too. And that's what we're playing for now. And we're lucky as fans to be in this position. Hopefully this is the year that Boston's ready to do it because everybody's healthy and the team looks like they're firing on all cylinders. And right now they look like they could be the favorites. So.
All right. So it's a pod like this is actually tough when things are going this well because you run out of things to kind of talk about. So the 5 questions today, Mike, for you is kind of a doomsday scenario, 5 questions. And I don't believe in jinxes. So if anything happens, I'm not taking any fault for this at all. What we're going to do today is we look at the core 6 players. And with each player, we're going to walk through with the Celtics, the position they're in now. If they were to lose one of these players, how far do you think they could go? So we're going to start with, I kind of rank them least to last. So Al Horford, if we were to lose him, let's just assume the Celtics are going to be the number 1 seed in home court throughout. How far can this team go without Al Horford?
I think the team could still make it all the way to the finals and even win it with the way the starting 5 have played and play this year. Not to say, obviously Al brings a lot to the team. It's a huge loss. He shoots the ball well. He passes the ball well. He defends well. He seems really healthy right now and playing really great. But I think that's part of the reason why they picked up Tillman. As a Al Horford contingency plan, as Al really fell off in the playoffs last year. But this year you have KP, and in the playoffs you could ask KP to play 40 minutes a night if you have to, with all the days off that you get. And yeah, it would be a loss. It would certainly hurt you against Milwaukee. If Embiid ever came back, which I don't think he is, it could hurt you there. But the Celtics would be the favorites out east. It would make it harder to beat Denver, but they certainly could still compete in that series against Denver.
Yeah, and I don't want to marginalize this because if you lost any of these players, and I'm knocking on wood, it'd be very difficult. His loss, he's especially with the way he's been playing of late. He's been excellent lately. His defense has been extraordinary. He doesn't seem to make any mistakes on offense. It seems like they're finding him on mismatches on the post more than I'm used to seeing out of Al since his second kind of term here in Boston. But I'm with you. I think they could still win it. I think the margin from error gets much smaller, but I think they could still win it. Do you feel the same way if the Celtics lost Drew Holiday for any extended amount of time?
Oh, first I want to say that Holiday's been playing just as good or even better than now.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
Recently.
Yeah, he's been
Yeah.
awesome.
His shooting has been out of this world, which is something I haven't trusted him with. And part of me still doesn't know how much I trust him with his
45% for three on the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I know I used to get really annoyed with early 3-point shots and the shot clock by him. I still don't know if they're great shots, but that doesn't matter. He's playing really well. Um, I feel like so Al would be healthy. Yeah, I feel like then the Celtics would be in the same position. I still feel like they can win the East. They have a huge loss there defensively. But Pritchard has played really well. I don't know what their starting lineup would look like without Holiday. I think it would probably depend on matchups, whether they go double big or they stop Pritchard with White. But I still think they could. They still have Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, Jim. So I still think they could win the whole thing. Yeah, it would be tough. Obviously, be really hard, but I'd still feel like this team could compete to win it all.
All right, I got a lot of noise in my background. I don't know. Can you hear it, Mike? The work that's being done downstairs?
No.
Oh, good. Okay. So you have, I kind of agree with you, but I think the margin gets, the margin becomes even smaller than if Al goes down. I think the way Holiday has played, his switchability on defense, the way he's accepted his role, it's very unlike what Marcus Smart did last year, where he's taking, shots from within the offense. He's not dominating the ball in any way, but at the same time being a really good facilitator, good teammate. You would feel his loss. You would feel his loss. Pritchard could step up and do some things, but I would put their ceiling at an NBA Finals. They still could win it, in my opinion. Do you feel the same way if Derek White goes down?
Oh, could they win the NBA Finals if Derek White gets hurt? I hope so, because I would like to think that Jason Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis are good enough as a big three to get it done, Jim. I think the Celtics have, like, they're spoiled with riches here. They have so much as a team that they should be able to win when the main piece goes down. But Derek White, now we're talking about, the cream of the crop here. One of their big four going down. I still think they could win the East. And I think if Tatum and Brown are playing at their highest level in the NBA Finals, that the Celtics could still win the NBA Finals, yes. But they wouldn't be the favorites. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think they could get out of the East. I think if they play in Denver, Denver would be favorites in this situation. And if I was picking and White's out, I would probably go with the Nuggets. But they could win it. Especially if it's, I guess I'm going to get ahead. You're going to know where I stand on Jaylen Brown now. I feel like if you have Tatum, Porzingis, and either Brown or White, with everyone else, you got a chance to win a championship. That's kind of, my thinking on this. So if you had Tatum, Brown, White, you could win it. If you had Tatum, Porzingis, White, you could win it. If you had Tatum, Porzingis, Brown, you could win it. Although if you lose Brown, it's the margin even gets smaller than with Derek White. So, even to come out of these becomes more difficult. So as we move on to Brown as the next guy, I think it's pretty much the same boat. I think they could get out of the East. I don't think they would be favorites. I think it would be in the finals. I think it would be even harder to win it, but they'd at least have a shot.
See, I disagree.
Yeah.
I think if they lose Brown, they don't have a shot. And I think for me, it's the defensive side of the ball that he brings to this team that I don't think anybody else brings anymore. As far as
That
an
could be
edge
right,
in the
yeah.
way he defends on the ball.
How far do you think
Uh,
they go then if they lost him?
I think they'd have a really hard time beating Milwaukee because they don't have the advantage anymore as far as these two wings who are just going to dominate and really abuse the fact that Milwaukee doesn't have the wings to defend them. I think once Brown's out, Milwaukee can throw these junk defenses at Jason Tatum. They have the size to play with Porzingis. And it would really come down to the guard play and put a lot of pressure on Holiday and White to win that series. I still think the Celtics could do it, but I would say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaylen Brown wasn't playing that a team like Milwaukee beat them.
Yeah, and then the next two guys, I'll just tell you where I am. I think if Tatum ever went down, you're not going to pass the second round. I just think that's how valuable he is.
Well, I think they could. If you look at like the standings and what's out there, if they don't play Miami, I think they could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Because it's like the Knicks, are they even going to be healthy? Like Philadelphia, are they even going to be healthy? The Pacers, does that translate into the playoffs? You know,
how many games do you think they would have won in this winning streak if they didn't have Jason Tatum? What would their record be?
Yeah, maybe they'd be like 7-4.
Yeah. I mean, how many times has he been the reason they've won? Especially in that before the All-Star break. And then you look at like third quarters in the second half of the season, post All-Star break. He's just taken over. And like I'm at the point where I'm starting to feel like he's underrated around the league on just everything he brings to the game and everything he does well. So maybe you're right. Maybe they find a way to get through the second round, but that's as far as they go without him.
Yeah.
And Porzingis, I think they can make the East Finals without Porzingis. I think their offense is still that good even without him, especially if Tatum's healthy. And if you have a healthy Tatum, even without Porzingis, your ceiling could still be the NBA Finals. That's how good Jason Tatum is. I mean, it was essentially the team they had last year, and they were a game away, right? I know you had Rob Williams, but he wasn't really Rob Williams in those playoffs last year. So, to me, that Tatum could still get you to the finals even without Porzingis, and you still have Brown. But if and I think that's kind of where I end on this, Mike, is you can make your ultimate goal if you lose anyone with, there's a chance to get there. It obviously gets harder. It's not likely if you lose anyone that's not Jason Tatum. And I think everything changes with him. And I know you've hit on it a lot. This is really an opportunity for him, I think, these playoffs. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at here, to really, cement himself. I think these playoffs are going to be much as about him as anybody else.
And also him playing healthy too, not just like losing Jason Tatum is one thing. Having Jason Tatum not healthy playing is another thing too. And so I feel like these last two postseasons, the Celtics have had some bad luck there.
Yeah.
That wrist was really bothering him 2 years ago during that championship run. In the shoulder. Yeah. It was so obvious. And then last year, Game 7, I mean, I still feel like Game 7 against Miami, the Celtics win if Tatum doesn't get hurt. I do. That's how I feel. I know Miami shot lights out. Duncan Robinson played out of his fucking mind in Game 7. But I still feel like that was such a downer because Brown was so bad. Tatum was like the MVP of that series. That that 3-game winning streak that they were on was all Jason Tatum. So I just hope for this playoff run we get lucky enough to have him healthy the entire time. If they lose Porzingis, I agree with you. They can still compete for this thing, but he just makes life so much easier, man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he's another one that
cheat code. Yeah.
It's obvious what he brings on the offensive end, but the Celtics shot blocking between him and Derek White at the rim, and Al Horford. There's nothing like that across the league except in Boston. And now you see Cornette doing it when he comes in the game off the bench. Like they're protecting the rim maybe better than anybody, maybe even better than Milwaukee was. Brook Lopez and Giannis. Like the Celtics might be the best
Yeah, Milwaukee
paint and rim defense in the NBA. You lose KP. I don't know if you are that anymore.
well, it goes to the defense being on the string. So Milwaukee can't cover the perimeter. So your bigs have to overhelp, right? And they're out of position. So you get shots at the rim, despite those guys being good rim protectors. They're not as good if your guards can't defend, your wings can't defend. Everyone in the Celtics can defend. And whether it's ball pressure or, they can switch everything. You don't like we haven't even gotten into it, but you didn't see them double Jokic. I'm sorry, Luka Doncic in the game Friday night all that much. They didn't have to. They just said, you know what, you may score 45, but our defense is good enough that no one else is going to do anything. That we'll cover Kyrie one-on-one. We'll be on your shooters. Don't worry about it. Now, they did double a little bit of Kyrie at times yesterday, but I think that goes to a lack of there's nobody else on Golden State that you have.
Exactly.
It's like the ABC defense, anybody but Curry, because they just don't have any threats. But the Celtics, if you have a good team and you have some shooters and you have surrounding cast, they can all guard the yacht. And it makes a huge, huge difference. And your best players, Tatum and Brown, and I know we said Brown has been really good defensively. I think Tatum's better than him defensively. I think Tatum's is among the top 5 or 10 defensive players in the league and doesn't get the credit for it. He doesn't do it through 48, and he shouldn't. But come to the fourth quarter, you can put him on anybody, and he's gonna make their life a living hell. And so, I
just feel like Brown's a tone setter defensively.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he took on Curry yesterday, and he did a good job. And I'm sure he'll take on, try to take on Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell over these next couple of games. But to your point, that it all works together. And Porzingis and White have been the beneficiary of, really good perimeter defense and adding up some block shots. It's all on a string, and they all do it together. And you saw it yesterday, despite Golden State having, limitations with other guys, they have an offense that's tough to defend, and the Celtics didn't have any problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah, so looking forward to Tuesday night. Speaking of Donovan Mitchell, he's a guy that typically loves to go off against Boston.
Oh, he does great. Yeah, Garland's had some good nights too. So yeah, we'll see. And Evan Mobley's healthy, so we'll see how he matches up against Porzingis. That's interesting. And
if Porzingis plays,
yeah, which he might not. So, all right, everyone, Celtics are rolling, and we'll keep rolling too, all the way to the playoffs and hopefully to a championship. We'll talk to everyone soon.